The quarterly Richardson family brunch was going exactly as expected. My brother Michael, CEO of Richardson Technologies, was holding court at the head of the table in his $10,000 suit, regaling everyone with tales of his latest corporate triumphs. And then I told the board, "Gentlemen, this merger will double our market cap by next quarter," he boasted, cutting into his wagyu steak. The vote was unanimous, of course. Nobody questions my business instincts. Our parents beamed with pride. Dad, the former CEO who'd handed Michael the reins 3 years ago, nodded approvingly. Mom adjusted her Cartier bracelet, the picture of satisfied affluence. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, picking at my salad. The failed daughter. The one who'd walked away from the family business 5 years ago to start my own investment firm. "Sarah," Michael's voice dripped with false concern, "how's your little, what do you call it? Investment advisory?" "Meridian Capital is doing well," I said quietly, taking a sip of water. He laughed, the sound echoing through the private dining room of the city's most exclusive club. "Still playing with those small savings accounts? You know, if you'd stayed at Richardson Tech, you'd be handling real money by now." "Like the merger?" I asked innocently. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, exactly. The Atlas Software merger will be the biggest deal in tech this year. Not that you'd understand the complexities." Dad cleared his throat. "Michael's right, dear. Corporate finances, well, it's a bit above your level." I checked my watch. 11:58 a.m. Perfect timing. "Actually," I smiled, reaching for my phone as it buzzed, "I understand more than you think." The restaurant's TV screens, usually showing muted financial news, suddenly caught everyone's attention. The ticker at the bottom showed Richardson Technologies stock dropping sharply. Michael's fork clattered against his plate. "What the hell?" "Breaking news," the anchor announced. "Anonymous sources reveal major accounting irregularities at Atlas Software, the target of Richardson Technologies' proposed merger." The color drained from Michael's face as he frantically pulled out his phone. Dad was already dialing his broker, and Mom's perfectly manicured hand trembled as she reached for her wine glass. "This is impossible," Michael sputtered. "We did full due diligence. The numbers were solid." "Were they?" I asked calmly, opening my laptop. "Or did Atlas just show you what you wanted to see?" His head snapped up. "What do you know about this?" "Oh, quite a bit." I turned the screen to show him a series of complex financial documents. Meridian Capital has been investigating Atlas for months. Their revenue numbers? Mostly fake. Their client list? Half of them don't exist. But our auditors. "We're looking at manufactured data," I finished, while my team was tracking actual cash flows. Amazing what you can find when you dig deep enough. The stock price was falling faster now. The restaurant's other patrons had stopped eating, all eyes on the financial news screens. "Richardson Technologies shares down 18% and falling," the anchor reported. "Sources suggest the SEC is launching a formal investigation into Atlas Software." Dad's face had gone ashen. "The family shares, our voting control, is about to change," I confirmed, pulling out more documents. You see, while Michael was busy announcing his genius merger, Meridian Capital was quietly buying Richardson Tech stock. Every time he pumped up the price with merger talks, we acquired more shares. Michael's hands were shaking as he scrolled through his phone. "That's not possible. We would have noticed large purchases." "Not when they're spread across multiple funds and entities," I explained. "A lesson I learned after you pushed me out of the family business. Sometimes the best moves are the ones nobody sees coming." Just then the restaurant's doors burst open. James Chin, chairman of the Richardson Technologies board, rushed in looking panicked. "Michael, the emergency board meeting starts in 20 minutes. The Atlas CEO just resigned and our stock is in free fall." "Emergency meeting?" Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes," I stood up, straightening my jacket. "To vote on new leadership, given the current management's catastrophic failure in due diligence." Michael laughed, but it sounded hollow. "You think the board will remove me? I control this company." "Actually," I smiled, pulling out one final document. "As of 9 a.m. this morning, Meridian Capital owns 51% of Richardson Technologies. And the board already has my proxy votes for your removal." The private dining room had gone completely silent. Even the usual background noise of clinking glasses and hushed conversations had ceased as other diners openly stared at our table. 51%? Dad's voice cracked. That's impossible. The family trust controls. 48%, I corrected. Which dropped to 35 after Michael used company shares as collateral for his personal loans last year. Did you think nobody would notice those transactions? Michael's face went from white to red. Those were legitimate business expenses. The yacht? The villa in Monaco? The private jet? I pulled up more documents on my laptop. All bought with company assets while the stock was artificially inflated by your merger talks. The SEC will be particularly interested in the timing of those purchases. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers, spilling red across the white tablecloth. But your little investment firm, how could you possibly afford? Meridian Capital manages over $20 billion in assets, I said quietly. Though I guess you wouldn't know that since none of you ever bothered to ask what I was actually building these past 5 years. James Chin was still standing by the door looking increasingly uncomfortable. The board is waiting and the press is gathering in the lobby, I nodded. I imagine they have questions about how the mighty Michael Richardson missed billions in fraudulent accounting at Atlas. Or perhaps they're interested in his personal use of company assets. Michael stood up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. This is revenge. Because I pushed you out. No, I cut him off. This is business. Something you might understand if you'd spent more time doing actual due diligence and less time bragging about deals you hadn't closed. My phone buzzed again. Another market update. Richardson Technologies stock now down 32%. I read aloud. Though it should stabilize once the board announces the leadership change and withdrawal from the Atlas merger. Dad finally found his voice again. You planned this. All of it. I planned to protect the company you built, I corrected. The one Michael was running into the ground with his ego and reckless decisions. The fact that it gives me control. I smiled. Let's call that karmic justice. The restaurant screens were now showing live footage of the Richardson Technologies headquarters, where reporters were gathering in growing numbers. In a developing story, the anchor announced, sources indicate that Meridian Capital, led by Sarah Richardson, has acquired controlling interest in Richardson Technologies. The mysterious investment firm, known for its aggressive but precise takeovers. Mysterious. Michael laughed bitterly. More like lucky. You couldn't possibly have orchestrated all this. I pulled up another screen on my laptop. A complex web of financial transactions and corporate structures. 6 months of planning. Tracking every bad decision you made. Every inflated projection. Every misuse of company resources. While you were mocking my small savings accounts, I was building the case for your removal. James Chin cleared his throat. The vote will be unanimous. The board has already indicated their support for new leadership. My leadership, I confirmed, standing up. Unless, of course, Michael would like to explain to the SEC why he failed to notice Atlas Software's financials were largely fictional? Or perhaps he'd like to discuss his personal use of corporate assets. Mom reached for another wine glass, her hand trembling. But the family name, the scandal, will be minimized if Michael resigns quietly, I assured her. Meridian Capital will stabilize the stock, unwind the merger, and implement proper corporate governance. The company will survive. Michael's reputation, however. You can't do this to me, Michael protested, but his voice had lost its usual arrogance. Surely I can. And I did. I gathered my things, preparing to leave. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. You can either announce your resignation or I can call for a vote to remove you for cause. Your choice. Dad stood up, straightening his tie. I'll come with you. As former CEO, will need to explain his own role in this mess, I finished. The board has questions about your oversight as chairman. Or lack thereof. My phone buzzed one final time, a message from my executive team. SEC investigators arriving at Atlas Software headquarters. Media requesting comment on leadership change. Time to go, I announced. Michael, are you coming to resign gracefully, or should I have security escort you out? He slumped in his chair, decades of arrogance finally draining away. You've destroyed everything. No, I corrected him, I've saved everything. The company, its employees, its future. You're the one who nearly destroyed it all with your ego and carelessness. As we walked toward the door, I could hear Mom starting to cry softly. Dad had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. And Michael just sat there, staring at his reflection in the window, perhaps finally seeing himself clearly for the first time. Oh, and Michael? I paused at the door. About those small savings accounts you mocked? They belonged to investment firms, pension funds, and sovereign wealth funds, all of whom trusted Meridian Capital to manage their money responsibly. Unlike you, I understand the difference between showing off wealth and creating value. The elevator ride to the board meeting was silent. James Chin kept checking his phone, watching the stock price stabilize as rumors of my takeover spread. Michael stared straight ahead, his perfect suit suddenly looking like a costume rather than armor. As we reached the executive floor, I could see the board members gathering in the glass-walled conference room. Their faces were grim but determined. The vote would be quick and decisive. One last chance, I offered Michael. Resign now, keep some dignity. Or let them vote you out and face the SEC alone. He reached up and slowly removed his custom-made tie, the one with the Richardson Technologies logo that he'd worn like a crown. You won't succeed, he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Running a company this size is about more than just appearances. I finished for him. Yes, I know. That's why I've spent 5 years building something real while you were building a house of cards. The boardroom doors opened and the future of Richardson Technologies, my company now, waited inside. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just winning the game. It's changing the rules to make sure no one can play it badly again. Even if you have to buy the whole damn company to do it.